Today, I'm trying to solve the Clockwork Phenylium Molecule, taking it from this to this. The Clockwork Phenylium Molecule is a gear cube which was hand-painted by Joseph Bencic to have a clockwork aesthetic. I unboxed it last year in another video, and now I'm finally getting around to solving it. But wait, by this point you're probably thinking, why am I showing you this? What's special about it? The gear cube is notorious for being extremely easy to solve, so is it really worth making a whole video about this one? My answer is perhaps. There is a key difference between the Clockwork Phenylium Molecule and the gear cube. On the gear cube, the centers could be pointing in any direction and the cube would still be solved. But this isn't the case on the molecule, which introduces center orientation to the solve, since the colors of the centers and edges need to line up. This extra step could be trivial, easy, or even potentially difficult. I don't actually know yet. In fact, you have more insight than I do right now, since you read the video's title, which I won't be writing until the solve is complete. If the center orientation does turn out to be a challenge, maybe it could inspire some of you to super sticker your own gear cubes if you want to get more out of the puzzle. Let's find out. And if you want to keep seeing interesting puzzles, like and subscribe.
Without further ado, let's scramble the Clockwork Phenylium Molecule for the very first time. Normally, I would scramble and solve a puzzle a couple of times before scrambling it for the video, but somehow I don't think that's actually needed for something like this. But let's scramble it. Okay, well, it's pretty hard to scramble a gear cube that thoroughly, so this is going to have to do. So let's talk about what makes this different from the normal gear cube. The first thing that I personally notice is I see that right here, all of the center stickers are just one color without an orientation, but this puzzle has a 12 color scheme where each edge has its own unique color, and we have to match these center pieces to the edges, which means they could be in the wrong orientation. I've never had to solve that specifically on a gear cube, so it remains to be seen whether or not this one change will suddenly make this a crazy difficult puzzle. The gear cube in general is really easy, and there's a lot of other variations that, rather surprisingly, actually remove some of the gears, and those are much harder because part of what makes the gear cube so easy is really, a lot of the times it's hard to separate pieces at all because of just how restricted all of the movements are. The other thing that you'll notice is, you see these U-shaped pieces right here? None of these have any kind of coloring on them on the gear cube, but here all of them have coloring. And of course, they're also going to have to match to the centers and the edges in the solved state. But the thing is, this actually doesn't change the solve at all, like in the slightest. These pieces are actually always married to the edge that's in between them, and in fact I'm pretty sure that this U-shaped piece and this U-shaped piece are actually the same piece of plastic, with this gear just in the middle. You'll actually notice on the puzzle that all of the colors perfectly match between the edge and the little U-shaped pieces, so that's a cool aesthetic touch on the Clockwork Phenylium Molecule, but it makes absolutely zero difference for the solve. So that's all that's different. Let's get to solving the Clockwork Phenylium Molecule. So the first step that I always take when solving a gear cube like this is to get all of the corners. It's actually no harder even with this color scheme because I'm pretty sure that you can't get two corners with the same color next to each other and have them be wrong in any capacity. Because, where else is it gonna go? And there's no duplicate colors on this, so that actually tells me that I'm pretty sure these two blue corners are correct, and likewise these two are correct, but they're correct relative to each other. Of course, they don't belong here because these colors and these colors are different, so I'm going to try and figure out where some of these other corners go. Okay, so I think this entire face is correct because we have the greens, the reds, the pinks, and the blues. So how's the other face looking? And the other face is also looking pristine. That's basically what always happens on the gear cube. You never have to put much thought into the corners. You get a couple of them done, and then the rest of them always follow through. So now the next thing to do is solve the edges and centers. so I can see that this is correct and this is correct, they're just turned wrong. So I'm actually going to keep turning this until they're back in the same place, but oriented correctly. And I also see that this center is oriented correctly, so that's nice. Actually, wait, okay. The center is oriented correctly, but this edge is wrong and this edge is wrong. So I am going to orient these right now, but I might have to move this center out later. So I don't know if I'm gonna have to deal with orientation issues afterwards. Okay, so these three pieces are good, these three pieces are good. The center is good, but these two edges are not. I'm going to do the same where I'm gonna rotate this and this. Alright, so these edges are also good. So it looks like all of the edges that are wrong are on this axis, but there's also a bunch of centers that are wrong. Like, for example, this is not the right place for that. That's not the right place for that. This is the right place for this one. So in general, there's a lot of centers that still need work. What I want to do right now is just treat this as a gear cube and ignore the center orientations, and then we'll really see, because if we end up being able to solve the puzzle but with different center orientations, then that would make the puzzle unique. But if they all have to be correct, then this solves exactly like a gear cube with a different color scheme. So I'm curious to find out. Okay, so right now we are here and we have all of the corners and all of the edges actually solved, but only some of the centers are solved. We have this one solved and this one solved. I'm actually kind of expecting that opposite ones are always tied together. These two are good, but then these two are turned by exactly 180 degrees. So that officially means that the Clockwork Phenylium Molecule, or any gear cube that has center orientation, is a different puzzle to solve than this one. And I will say, even if that wasn't the case, honestly, I kind of struggled to maneuver this thing around just because this color scheme made it a bit harder to visualize where everything should go. So it's honestly more of a trip than a gear cube, even without any center orientation shenanigans. But now I have to think, how am I going to orient these two centers? I think I'm going to take the cube off camera for a few minutes and just try and visualize it a little better. And once I've found a way that I think can potentially turn these centers around, I'll come back to you and let you know. Well, there goes my idea of trying to do a quick solve on this. It is the next day, and I will confess to having spent over an hour in total trying to figure out this center conundrum. It's still a bit confusing to me, but what I ended up looking for are algorithms that cycle the corners around so that the corners end up in the same place as they are in the solved state, but turn the centers some amount of times. And I found two algorithms. The first one is going to flip around all three centers. I say three because, of course, all of the centers are tied to the ones directly opposite them, so we don't even have to look at the other side of the puzzle. So this one will flip all three of these 180 degrees. And for notation, I'm just going to use normal 3x3 notation. So this is still an R2. Just because that makes it a little easier for me to not have to automatically multiply or divide all the notation or anything like that. So this algorithm is just R2, U2 3 times. So you can see that this one's now good, but these two are now flipped by 180 degrees. And also, for what it's worth, I believe the only way that the centers can be misoriented is by being turned exactly 180 degrees. I don't think they can be turned 90 degrees. So that actually doesn't solve our problem, because we fixed this one, but now these two are broken. But the other thing I found is a different algorithm that actually will do exactly what we need. I actually can't remember if it'll turn around 1 pair or 2 pairs, but either way, it should be trivial to fix it afterwards. So I'm not going to claim to having done any writing or anything to figure this one out. I was kind of just turning things methodically, trying to figure out sequences that get the corners back, and this one is very simple. It's R2, U2, F2, and just repeat that 4 times. And here we are. So this center's good, this one's good, and this one's also good. So I guess effectively it flips around these two, because I remember I had this one correct and these two are flipped, and now these are all correct. So I guess that's what it does. I couldn't remember if it flipped only one or actually two. But you can see that unlike the other algorithm I showed you, this one actually does not keep the edge gears in shape. So we're going to have to turn a bunch of times to get the shape back. And here we are. The Clockwork Phenylium Molecule has been solved. You know what? I was expecting just a basic gear cube solved with the centers not actually adding any challenge whatsoever, and I was completely blown away. I spent way more time with this thing than I really intended to, and you know what? I don't regret it at all. Thank you, Joseph Bencic, for creating this very unique adaptation of a gear cube. If you want to see what wild painted creations he has for sale now, check out his Etsy store. I'll link it in the description. But for now, and probably forever, that is all I will have to say about the Clockwork Phenylium Molecule.
Thanks for watching. I'll see you another time. Bye.